So now Madeline is the current adult education coordinator and honorary curator at the Rosa Parks Museum at Royal University, Montgomery, and is going to look at how can museums professionals tell a story that doesn't belong to us. So let's go ahead.
Thank you for having me over here today. I'm from the Deep South in America, so sorry for my accent. I suppose I hope you can understand me. Today I'm going to talk about how art can help visitors understand empathy in museums. Over in the United States, I don't know how it is here, but in the United States, history museums specifically are notorious for just putting text on a wall, and that's all it is. And our history books in schools don't go over these darker parts of history either. So this dark part of history, kids are only seeing in the museums if they show it. So I brought in a couple of examples of exhibitions that we've had at the museum that I have had the pleasure of curating over the past 2.5 years that I've been there. And this first one I'm going to talk about is called Cash Crop, and this is a zoomed-in view of one of the main focal points of the exhibition. Cash crop refers to the phrase used during the American Civil War for cotton. So cotton was king back then, and this was the major cash crop during the war. But the artist has taken that term and used it to talk about people instead of cotton, because with that cotton production, there came an influx of slaves. So Cash Crop by artist Stephen Hayes is going to talk about the transatlantic slave trade. Most school kids in the United States only see the Brooks diagram of the slave ship, which is just pretty much the top off of the ship, and they see how the people were stacked into the bottom. That's all they get. And then it happened in the South, it was a thing, it's over. Stephen Hayes took 15 plaster cast molds of his friends and family members, and one is actually of himself. And he made these life-size figures to represent the 15 million who came over on the transatlantic slave trade. In between each person, they are chained down to an auction block. If the museum were in a larger space, you would be able to walk in between each one of the pallets and you would hear the chains clink. So you're getting a full-on sensory experience with the visuals and the audio. So this was the very first kind of in-your-face show that the museum had done. Rosa Parks Museum is named after a very famous civil rights figure and activist. It's been there for 18 years, but it had just been showing a lot of local art. So I came in and thought, what can we do to make people really understand what's going on? And this kind of did it. The most moving part of this exhibit was when a girl in middle school came up to me and she said, she's African American, and she said, I did not understand the slave trade until I saw these people's faces. So here's you see the rust on there that the artist has purposely put. So it looks like they're crying and they're chained down, and they're very realistic because they're taken from actual people. The artist also brings in some relevant issues. This model here spanned the whole room, and it's a commentary on how the slave trade is still going on today. And this was like a sweatshop. So the artist locked himself up in his bedroom for 14 days, and he made these. And some of the students we had that came in didn't fully understand what sweatshops do, so we had to tell them, Nike, things like that, when they get people from other countries who are in this position that they can't get out of. So this was kind of our first way of trying to become more relevant in the museum world. The next exhibition that we followed up with after that was called Fabric of Race, Racial Violence and Lynching in America. During the Jim Crow era of the South, there were laws that were in place that said if you were not white and maybe you looked at me, you could be lynched, you could be killed just because of the color of your skin. So there's been a lot of discussion about that time period in America because no one's really talking about it. So this artist, who's actually from California, came up with the idea of putting all of these shirts on a wall. And each shirt is supposed to represent a victim of racial violence or lynching. They're different sizes, they're different time periods, and they're going to represent one individual person. Now, it can't represent everyone because there are over 4,000 people who were known to be victims of this crime. But for every one name that is known, 4 are left unknown. So this is not an accurate representation, but it still gets the job done of being very in your face. Some of these shirts were kid sizes, some of them were for pregnant women. There were whole families on this wall. There were tags that hung down from each shirt that had the name of the person, as well as either how they died, the year they died, where they died. Actually, the night of the opening, we had a local woman come in who picked out a shirt for a member of her family, and the artist was able to hand stitch a tag for her and put it on. That was very moving. This exhibition was one of the ones where we had visitors come in to the museum and they would refuse to enter this room. We had people become so angry, not at the subject matter, but the whole event just happened in America's history. We became so frustrated that they wouldn't enter the room. They would come back weeks later and try to work their way through it. Some people came into the room and would just start bawling. They were so upset by what they were seeing. And to me, that means you're getting the job done. Because we hadn't had exhibitions like this before in our past. And Montgomery, Alabama is pretty notorious for just having this dark history about it, where the cradle of the Confederacy and the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, which are very dark times in America's history. We did have some children come and go through this exhibition. It seems a little graphic, but it's really not. It's just the abstract idea in itself that's more so in your face. The artist also wanted every visitor to come in and touch the shirts, touch the tags, feel them, know that this was an actual person. So this was a very hands-on experience. I'm not sure if any of you all are familiar, but the Equal Justice Initiative, which is located in Montgomery, Alabama, just opened this past April the National Memorial for Peace and Justice and the Legacy Museum. It's known worldwide as like the Lynching Memorial, but this was a year before they did that. We were hoping to get it around the same time, but they kept pushing back their opening. That's another very in your face. We're going to talk about this, we're going to put it in front of you. What are you going to do about it in the situation? This is our current exhibition. Well, kind of current. We just took it down last Wednesday. So a lot of you will notice a Ku Klux Klan robe in the corner. It's authentic from the Red Summer of 1919. That summer was a summer where there was a lot of blood that was shed and a lot of killings occurred. That robe actually has a blood stain down the back of it that has been identified to being during that time in authentic human blood. This artist is V.L. Cox, and the exhibition is called Break Glass, A Conversation to End Hate. Well, if it's called A Conversation to End Hate, why do you have a Klan robe in the corner? And, here at the Rosa Parks Museum, why got a Klan robe in the corner? Well, we wanted to talk about how political documents in the Bible and these heavy, heavy things that the government is supposedly founded on have this language that is allowed to be used by hate groups and twisted and used for their own purposes. So I called this area of the room the Klan corner. It's got the Klan robe there. That's an actual Klan mask on the typewriter. And then this painting right here is of a child dressed in a Klan robe. In Arkansas, they have Klan camp for kids. They had 30 attendees last summer. So this is something that's still going on. People think this is a history museum, but this stuff is still very active. It's happening, and you have to put it out there in front of their faces or else they're going to think that it was in the past. We also allowed visitors who were people of color to come up and touch the robe, and that was a way of giving them their power back. This whole exhibition was meant to humanize evil, for you to be able to look it in the eye. When you're hiding behind a robe like that, you're a coward. You're not an actual person. You're just that whole force of evil. So by being able to almost dissect that person and show that it's just a robe, it's not going to hurt you. That's just the hatred of that person behind there. So hopefully those people were able to come up and touch it and reclaim that power. Because there are so many people in the South and throughout other parts of America that have been affected by the Klan. I'm actually friends with a family whose house was bombed 3 times during the Civil Rights Movement by people like this. So this isn't stuff that happened 100, 200 years ago for us. America's a relatively new country. So we're still dealing with all of these issues. This is a lot of controversy, and we've talked about human remains today. I also don't know if you all are familiar with the Pulse nightclub shooting that happened in Orlando in the United States a couple of years ago. It was a mass shooting, which sadly mass shootings are not used anymore in the United States. This happened at a gay club, and a lot of people were killed. The artist saw this, and she found a skeleton that was in an antique shop. She purchased that skeleton and said, I want to make an assault rifle out of that gun. We were the first museum to actually show this gun. The reason behind this, the reason behind how we got it, was that I just did it. I don't know if I really recommend that for a lot of institutions, but we're owned and operated by a university, and as a lot of people have talked about today, there is a lot of red tape there. There are a lot of people who are in power that will tell you no. So I just don't ask for permission a lot of times, I just put it up. No one who was above me knew about this exhibition until the night it opened. That's not my fault if you don't come across the street. You might want to check in on us every once in a while. But then by that point, it was there, and it would have caused a huge controversy if they had asked us to take it down. Because then they might have looked like racist or something, or that they supported them. So they can't take it down. This is actually a medical skeleton, and that is the way we are getting away with showing it, is if we state that it was medical remains, then we can get away with it. These are the doors. These are the most famous of her works. These have been shown at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. They've been shown at the Arkansas State Capitol, and they've been shown at the museum I'm at right now. Each door says something different. It's colors only, whites only, LGBTQ only, or LGBT only. I'm adding the Q, I guess. Immigrants only, homeless only, veterans only, women only, and then human beings. And what you can't see on this PowerPoint is the human beings door is wrapped in chains and locked up. So you're not getting any entry into the human beings door. Very powerful symbol of what's going on in our country right now with border control and just discrimination in general. It wasn't until actually 2 weeks ago when, I've started working on this pretty well. I knew that we've had some reactions to this room, but nothing major, just some people were angry about the Klan robe. We moved on from it. There's a 10-year-old girl who came through the museum, and this exhibition is called Break Glass, Conversation in Hate. In one corner of the room is one of those things where the fire extinguishers are, where you would break it and to get in, to get out. It had tin cans in it, which were the old telephones they used back in the day. This girl comes up to the front desk where I am, and I'm like, what was your favorite part about today? It doesn't have to be at this museum. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you say somewhere else. She said, oh, I love the doors. It's like, okay, well, what do you love about the doors? They're there, they're fine. And she said, well, I know exactly where the key is for the human beings door. And I know there is no key for that door. And I said, okay, well, you want to take me back there and show me where it is? She said, no, I'll just tell you. It's right where it says break glass, because we're not talking to each other. And if we talk to each other, that door would open. But nobody wants that door to be open because it would give everyone equal opportunity. And I was just like, you're 10. How? So I called the artist and said, this 10-year-old child has come through. I don't know if she's real or not. And I was like, I wish I'd thought of that too. But the point is that we've had these exhibitions where children have come in from the state of Alabama, where our education system has been under fire recently. They've taken public art out of schools, taken so much out of everything there. But these kids are still able to come in and see this artwork and come up with these ideas that the adults in the establishment have never even thought of. And so in conclusion, I would like to just leave you with this. If these privileged groups who have had this whole time of writing the history of museums and have been able to put together these exhibitions, if we can just give people that sense of empathy through these very, very powerful objects and just throw it in their faces, then maybe we'll be better able to understand one another. So, thank you for having me over here.
Have all the presenters here, and we can start the last round of questions.
Both obviously using museums which can kind of touch on very kind of sensitive topics. And obviously the Rose Park Museum is kind of going straight for that. But the other one that we're speaking about, do you try and address some of the more controversial issues there? Or do you very much focus on Maybridge as like a local hero and kind of the more positive elements?
So basically idea is, give an example. If someone loves poetry, doesn't know museum, never been to a museum, doesn't know who Maybridge is, she can come to a museum to listen to this professional poem read. And it happens to be subject is Maybridge, and then she will get to know about Maybridge and then get to know about our collection. So short answer is I don't have much political agenda. My intention is I want to bring non-museum users, people who don't go to museum, but they have their other interests. It could be, as I said, film, it could be animation, it could be dance, but we happen to have those events of their choice and their interest, and they happen to come to museum to see that, and then hopefully they will discover our collection. So it's like opening new doors to non-museum goers, hopefully, and museum goers to come to museum to enjoy other types of entertainment whose content is in museum collection. So does it answer to your questions? I don't necessarily have that more political or social meaning, but hopefully, eventually, especially for local people, introducing this way of collection will enhance their cultural identity as a local pride and stuff. So I, at the moment, focus on the figures, but this is a long-term project. I'm doing PhD, not necessarily just this, but this will be part of my case study. So I'm going to monitor whether it has any impact on the local community through these kinds of manageable, small, but feasible effort. So I will be able to answer your question later, but at the moment, I'm focusing on delivery part. So.
Thank you.
My question is to Madeline about how is the narrative to art. I was thinking of Roger Salmon that he was very much talking about how to make the history relevant to the present. Could you say something about how you mentioned the reaction of someone who comes to see this exposure of the the sculpture. If you say something about how the people coming out and changing their attitudes or how it works.
I'm afraid I cannot hear you at all. Hold on. Let's come back there. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm loud here.
No, just wanted to know if you could say something about the reactions of the students coming to the exhibition. Referring to what you're saying how to make the past relevant to the present.
Okay. Sorry. I'm a bit congested too. So with those spaces that I was showing, those are all of our temporary exhibitions. So those change out every 3 to 6 months, so they don't stay very long. And I'll be honest with you and say the next one coming up isn't as good as any of the ones I just showed you. But with the kids that come through, these really aren't school groups that come through. Usually our school groups just do our permanent show, which hasn't changed in 18 years, and it's just about Rosa Parks. And it really depends on who you have as a tour guide, if they make that relevant or not. If I happen to be working the front desk and you get me, and they seem open to it, the school group, I can slightly go into more relevant topics such as police brutality, because that was something that happened during the civil rights movement. I can connect that to what's going on today. I can also connect how the bus boycott, which is what Rosa Parks was involved in, how that has helped shape a lot of other protests since then, such as even the March for Our Lives, which was the students from Parkland who were involved in the mass shooting last February in Florida, in the United States. But with these shows, what I found is that the students that come through are sometimes more aware of the current events than the adults that come through. Because we've had, for example, I had a 3-year-old child ask me one day, why did they call us N-word? Full inflection of the ER at the end, not like the A that they use in rap music. Like, tiny child asked me that. And I'm like, where have you heard this? You know, this is not normal. And put me in an awkward position because as a white female, I'm having to answer this question of a word that my ancestors probably definitely once used on him. And I think with media being such as it is, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot, all of these school kids that are coming through just have this influx of like relevant issues, and what we see as like relevant is almost past to them because the information is moving just so fast. And so if we don't talk about it right at that moment, then it's gone and you've missed that opportunity. And it's like I just gauge it though, because we still have some of those school groups who have come in and complained to us because we use the word hell in an exhibition because of something that just said like, what the hell? And the teacher complained about that, but not the N-word with the full ER on the wall. So it's like, where are your priorities? Are they for this, this cuss word as opposed to another one? I think I've like roundaboutly answered. Did that kind of answer your question? Okay.
If I can ask you just to speak a bit louder because Ana Maria and Martina cannot hear.
I'm curious about who are your visitors? Who are the people who come in? Not school groups, the informal visitors who come on their own.
Not locals. We don't get really anyone from the southeastern United States. We get actually a lot of British visitors. We get a lot of visitors from Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, some from France, Australia, a lot of Canadians as well. People from California and New York. Fun thing about New Yorkers is they'll come down and say racism was never a thing when I was growing up. That's really fun to deal with. But they're usually middle-aged. Everyone who comes through is already retired and they're wanting to do a tour. of these sites. Most people who come to the museum are also doing, I call it a pilgrimage, where they start in like Savannah, Georgia, New Orleans, and they hit us, they hit Atlanta, sometimes they'll hit Memphis, and Birmingham, Alabama. And for those of you all that may not be familiar with the area, those are some key civil rights sites in America. And so they just, this trip, it's usually middle-aged, white, really. We get a lot of African Americans during the summer, and that's when they bring like family reunion groups. But usually it's like white, middle-aged, from another country.
But you don't get locals.
We never get locals. We do for exhibition openings, and this is going to sound really bad. I would say that usually over half the people in there are people that I know that I've personally invited.
Have you tried to reach the locals?
We've tried. It's tricky with that because it's a situation of the locals there. It's a smaller city than where we are right now. It's only 200,000 people live in Montgomery, and the city doesn't want to confront that past anymore. It's happened to me. So it's either I know about it because I lived through it, so I don't want to go again, or I don't want to talk about it. It's too much, so I'm just going to ignore it. And then we have some locals who just don't even know that it exists. And we've tried going on the news. We've tried being in the newspaper, social media, promoting it, putting out flyers even. And we'll run programs with just 2 people in attendance. And it's just like we don't know what else to do. But it's probably a marketing issue. We just don't know where exactly. I think free admission would help, but they're not going to do it.
How well attended are places like the Civil Rights Memorial or other, the Freedom Riders Museum, other civil rights locations in Montgomery?
The numbers are going to be a little bit skewed right now because of the opening of EJI's National Memorial, because they brought in 30,000 people in 1 week, which was crazy. With them, they see 800 people a day, and that's just who's made a reservation. They have walk-ins in addition. We're located, so if you're looking at a map of Montgomery, here's the memorial, the lynching memorial. Here we are, and then here's the Legacy Museum. We're 4 blocks from each site, so we're a good halfway point. They're getting, again, 800 plus visitors a day. We're lucky to hit 100. So there's something that's not connecting there. Their tickets are cheaper. Their museum is newer. We haven't touched ours in 18 years, minus the temporary stuff. But, and once you've seen it, you've seen it. But I think the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church probably gets a few less than we do. Civil Rights Memorial probably gets a few more than we do because they're cheaper. So I would say probably in the 200 visitor a day for Memorial.
Following that, I have a question for you, because so in one of the slides that you have shown us is actually that the same that not the same, but that you are actually that your audience is quite focused on white people, and I was wondering whether you have actually tried to reach other community ethnicities.
Well, that's a general program of museum, not just for this event. So we are doing our best, but it's very difficult. Also, maybe it's good to point that out. The where museum is situated is quite affluent area, so the appetite for cultural events isn't lacking. But what it is, we are 14 miles from central London, so we are too close to London. So if people have time and money and want to do something cultural, they go to central London. So it is another added problem of Greater London area small museums. Also, we are one of those local authority social history museum whose collection isn't necessarily different. So, as a whole collection. So that's why I'm focusing this different collection, which might be our unique selling point. I'm not just selling this for the sake of it, but my point is this will be my weapon. So I'm gonna put people with this collection. Hopefully people discover us through this collection. So it's kind of something fishing really.
So I have a question for Ana Maria. So I was wondering what are the biggest challenges when you are working with such a different partnerships that has different ways of working, management. So what are the big challenges that you face when working with such different partnerships?
The kind of main challenge we is that it's our public small museums, because when you are going to have a conversation with the leader of that institution, which the majority of them are women, they are only like the housekeeper. I don't know if this makes sense. So if we are going to do a project of collections research, and if we go with this leader, we have to go to another person, which is probably in an office, and museums, the public museums, do not have like a representative that could coordinate those small leaders. So there is a lot of bureaucracy, if I can use this word, when we want to apply something or when we want to do something. In the case of the other museums which are private, one of the biggest challenge is the access, because we have like a routine, let's say, for doing this research. So we travel to different towns, but we can have like something which is frequent. We don't have frequency. I don't know if this makes sense. So we can't go each week or each month to talk with these people and to generate like a sense of confidence with them because of the characteristics of the land. So the most important, as I said, is the bureaucracy and the access difficulties that we have, and also that people here, the museums that are run by the public sphere, they like it's these kind of projects are new in this region, so it's very difficult to go and to have a meeting with someone that is focused just on the touristic sector, for example, and on the economic growth, which is not seen for them, it's not seen in museums. So we have to enter into a negotiation, but it's good that this project is run by the university and by the museum, because they are like, they show like a symbolic power, you know, and it has helped to make it faster, or they are like catalysts of this project. I hope it answered your question.
Thank you.
Is Martina online?
Martina's online, yeah.
I have a question for her. Okay, I'm going to try. If it's not a museum, why does she use the word museum so much? I mean, this activity, this cultural heritage migration activity needs a framing. I grant that. It's not a store. But why museum if that's precisely the thing against which they were going? Does that make sense?
I start the question, but can you repeat the second one?
Okay, question. If this creation, Portolan, is against the idea of a traditional museum, why do you still refer to it as a museum? Why not give it another name? I mean, science centers did that consciously.
Yeah, The reason why I sometimes use the word museum is that I think that in this phase of Porto M, there is, even if they are kind of denying and refusing some elements of the museum as medium, at the same time they are still, I think, passing through a museum form, because somehow there is still a single venue, there is still a collection, there are a group of people who are taking care of those objects. So I think it is not a museum. It is not a museum, but it is not an anti-museum. It's something that has got some elements of the museum as medium, but at the same time, I think that it's something that is going farther. And yeah, so the reason why I'm using this term is that because I think that some of the elements still belongs to this tradition.
So I have another question for you, Martina. I was wondering, this museum or organization, whatever
I
is.
cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
So I was wondering, how is this museum being funded? Is public? Is private? Like, what is the source of the funding, the money that is coming through?
Private donations, but they refuse institutional funding, as well as funding by multinationals, companies, and so they are for a politics question, of course, and so they are just funded by private people who are interested in the project and that believe that those objects are relevant to be preserved. And yeah, and this is, I think, also an important question, because this kind of funding, which is really precise, because refuse some kind of public and some kind of private funding, also gives some problem because in a way that it prevents them for developing all of the things that a traditional museum need. For example, they have problem in the preservation, in the conservation of the object, and yeah, it's difficult for them to restore them. So I think it's a challenge for them, this idea of keeping together a kind of funding which reflects their political choice, and at the same time continuing to take care of this object.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. In that case, we are finishing the last session of the conference.
I can't.